Today, economist Paul Krugman writes in a column that he entitles Rabbit Hole Economics that he is terrified by GOP presidential candidates and congressional leaders who he believes have lost their grip on reality. Professor Krugman argues the recent financial crisis was a devastating refutation of free market orthodoxy that has ruled American politics. I don't know where he's coming from, but this has my freedom fighters wondering. Who is truly terrifying, the Tea Party or the big government types like Professor Krugman, who would tax and spend this country further down his proverbial rabbit hole? Here to discuss before Alan Combs' blood pressure goes up are my freedom fighters, Fox Business anchor, and my colleague Tracy Burns, the inimitable Alan Combs, longtime Fox radio anchor and political analyst, and Benjamin Powell, Suffolk University economics professor. What the heck, Tracy, is Professor Krugman talking about?
Nobody knows, Judge. This is ridiculous. We know by now tax and spend does not work. The American people are struggling. The last thing they need is for the government to take more money out of our paychecks and spend it erroneously.
Alan, I'm going to try and summarize what I think Professor Krugman meant as fair to him as I can. He believes that Republicans in the Congress are too wedded to an antiquated ideology and are not in touch with the reality of people who are really out of work, and that if they taxed more and spent more, fewer of those people would be out of work. A fair summary of his argument?
Tax more and spend more temporarily. You tax it temporarily to make it back. Like any business, you invest in the business to make the money back, and they are intransigent on the right. First, all they want to do is get Obama out of office by their own admission. And secondly, their mission for everything is, let's just cut taxes for whatever ails you. You don't go to a doctor, they give you the same medicine for whatever ails you. Depends upon what the disease is at any given moment.
All right. Professor Powell, you're a professor of economics, just like Professor Krugman is. Why is it that he doesn't understand that a dollar that the government takes, multiplied by billions and trillions, is a lot fewer dollars that could be invested that would produce real prosperity?
I don't know what economy he's been watching for the last few years. Every intervention by the government, whether it's been the Bush administration or the Obama administration, has been about expanding government power and intervening in markets more. And look what we've got for it. It's just got worse and stagnated. Could you imagine if we had followed free market principles all this time? The screaming people would be doing, saying, we must intervene now? How about giving nothing a chance?
All right, Alan, you used the analogy of a doctor prescribing the same medicine and expecting a different result. Isn't taxing and spending and bailouts the same medicine and expecting a different result?
Bailouts work. Chrysler bailout worked. GM bailouts worked. They paid back.
Well, what worked for whom? Not for the people that own Chrysler and GM.
Money was paid back to GM. It worked for the American taxpayer. Sometimes, like any business, you've got to invest in order to make the money back. It's not just a one-time expenditure like a war. You're making the money back.
Taxing is not investing in me.
I'm not talking about taxing.
You're not investing
this
in my prosperity.
This president has reduced taxes for 95% of American families. In fact, in the stimulus plan, 40% of that were tax breaks.
The real problem isn't the taxing, it's the spending. It's the out-of-control spending that's going on. That's the promise of future taxes.
Spending is not always bad. So you guys don't want to spend ever on anything. No. I believe in
Alan, let me ask you this. Professor Krugman obviously disagrees with the values of the Tea Party, which generally could be described as more free market and less big government. What's wrong with sticking to your guns?
What's wrong with sticking to your guns?
Yeah, I mean, he's saying to them, don't stick to your guns.
Because it's not working. We're still under the Bush economy. We're still under the Bush tax cuts.
Well,
that has not worked.
What free market hasn't worked?
Wait a minute.
No,
we were told this would create jobs.
You cannot mention George Bush's name ever again. You can't. You just have no right to do that anymore.
She's talking to you like she talks to her kids. We've got to change subject.
And I'm going to go to my room right now.
Hang on.
The fact is, we're still living under that.
Alan, there's another.
The Bush-Obama regime is the same for the recession.
Scandal we have to address, Mr. Combs.
That's right. Obama needs to do more. They won't let him.
No, the problem isn't more. We much less.
Time out. Solyndra, Alan, I want to hear you on this one. Treasury officials testified today in the Solyndra nightmare. They're facing questions about yet another new face in the Solyndra scandal. Venture capitalist David Prend. I don't know if you've heard of him, Mr. Combs. He was reportedly the first to pitch the now bankrupt solar maker to green energy czar Carol Browner in 2009. Mr. Prend's involvement is leading congressional critics to theorize the reason President Obama was willing to ignore the warning signs of Solyndra from folks like Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner and go with obscure venture capitalists like a green giant agenda friend is because the president was betting he'd be able to push through a global warming bill that would make carbon-based fuels more expensive, and that would go and save Solyndra. Alan, should bureaucrats be spending tax dollars to make winners and losers in the economy?
Yes. In fact, That very concept, the idea of a capital investment plan for certain companies, was approved by Jim DeMint, was approved by the Republicans. The very same people who are now critical of this approved the loan guarantee program, which is what it's called, that has invested not just in Solyndra, but dozens of other companies that have paid back money.
Tracy,
but conservatives want to
Tracy,
focus.
hang on, Tracy, hang on.
You guys want to focus only on Solyndra.
Got it. Tracy, don't we know that this was a political decision when Tim Geithner himself recommended against it, and the president overrode that recommendation and went with the venture capitalists that were also Democratic contributors?
These people are not investment bankers, Judge. PricewaterhouseCoopers said the company had problems. They had to they couldn't go public because they had problems. They eventually had to refinance the loan that was offered to them. The company was a mess. And you have to look at the company.
Don't point at me.
I'm sorry.
Right,
you have to look at the company.
Let me get Ben Powell. Let me get Ben Powell in here. Talk about the evils of corporatism and crony capitalism when federal dollars go to the government's favorite bankers and business people.
Sure, but there's a conceptual issue. It's not about politics or whether they're an investment banker or not. It's when you subsidize these various businesses, you're fundamentally outside of the market order where we have profit and loss calculation to check whether we should be making these investments or not. If you're doing a subsidy, by definition, you're rigging the game. The people who are rigging the game don't know how it should be rigged. That's beyond the scope of anybody's knowledge, whether they're an investment banker, an economist, or a politician.
Alan, I'll give you the last word.
The government invested in NASA, in the internet. It created the internet. It created a whole number of things which have had tremendous.
Who created the internet?
Which has,
I thought it was Al Gore.
the art
You
was
can create
well,
things. It
well,
doesn't
he's the
matter. It means it's a good
government-
deal.
He's a government guy.
Got it. You know
It
what you
created-
did,
it had
Alan?
great windfall in terms of all kinds of things.
You know what you just did? You're so incendiary. We have to have you back. Tracy Burns, Alan Combs, Ben Powell. It's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.